Welcome to MacroCode. If you're new to this channel, consider subscribing. So today we are going to proceed with our help desk management system. So as you can see, we have our dashboard, and you can see we have the tickets. The dashboard details, we'll be updating them as we go. So we have the tickets details. So here you can see the ID, the title, the description, and the comments for the ticket. And you can add a new ticket, tie the ticket to that is have the title, description, status, priority, and you can create the ticket. So you can actually do some things here. So if you just say pending and you update it to high priority and create, then you'll be able to see the ticket is created. Then we have the ticket comments. So here you can actually add a comment to a ticket. So you can say, so you can just provide some weird characters. Then you can choose the ticket and you can create the ticket. So the same way under tickets, you can actually access the specific comments per ticket. So if you click on the comments, you'll be able to see the comments for that particular ticket. So for example, like this one, you can see we have the comment details. Then the next thing that we did yesterday, the next thing that we did was to add a new category. That is the category of the tickets. So here you can add a new category and you save it, and you can see you are able to see these categories. So here you can add another category, let's say ERP, then you can say ERP, say procurement. Then if you click on create, then you'll be able to have that as a category. So today I want us to add some things. So if you come to tickets and you try to add a new ticket, you'll note that we have the title, description, status, and the priority. So I want us to modify some things. So within the ticket, we can actually specify the category and the subcategory of the tickets. So, but before that, I want us to create the subcategories. You see here, we have the categories of the ticket. So this can be an hardware, but what kind of an hardware are you referring to? So that is one way of how we can specify the tickets. So you can also have maybe it's an hardware, it is something. It depends on how you want to categorize. Whether it's a software, you can indicate which kind of software, whether it is an antivirus, Adobe, or even AnyDesk. So that is what you can do. So what I want us to do, I want us to create another class. So let's just create another class. Then we can call it ticket subcategories. So I'm going to stop my project. So for those who are watching this video for the first time and you want to subscribe, please consider subscribing. So ticket subcategory. So I'm going to create ticket subcategory. That will be our class. Then on this class, I'm going to have, you can say public int ID. So this will be our primary key. So I'm going to zoom it so that you're able to see together. Then the next thing is I want us to have, so instead of, so we have the ticket subcategory. So the next thing is I want us to have a string. Then you can call these code. Then you can also have a string. Then you can call this name. So that is the name of the subcategory. But one interesting thing, we should always tie our subcategory to the category. So here I'll say category ID. So I'll say category ID. Then this category ID is actually a foreign key, and it should be coming from this particular table. So you'll say category, ticket category. So this is our category. Then here we'll say this is category. So then another thing is, remember we should always import our user activity. So this will have our modified by, created on, and the rest. So I don't know if we had the same thing for the ticket category. Yes, you see, we had the user activity. So this user activity will have some properties that we created. So that is actually the indicating who created what at what time and when. So for the subcategory, we have now the ID, the category ID, which is coming from this ticket category, the code and the name. Then here you can see it will add the user activity properties. So the next thing is I want us to add that particular table. So to add, we need to do it under the application DB context. So I'm going to add that here. So I'll have it here, then I'll just do ticket subcategory, then you can say your ticket subcategories. So we'll just do your sub. So these will be ticket subcategories. So after that, the next thing is to add our package, that is the add migrations. So we'll just do add migration, then we say added ticket subcategories. So this is the migration name. So I'll just do ticket subcategories. So added ticket subcategories, press enter, then it will generate the migration file. So after generating the migration file, then we'll need to actually update the database. So if you are watching this video for the first time and you've not subscribed, consider subscribing as we build the ticket help desk management system. So we'll be happy to engage and have your comments incorporated. So you'll see we have the ticket subcategories, you have the ID, category ID, the code, the name, the created by, created on, modified on, and modified by. So to update this to the database, we'll just do update database. Then these will be updated. So just update database and these will be updated. So once this is updated, we can now scaffold this and we can create. So let's just check everything is okay. As you can see, it has generated the table and you can see here it is actually creating the table. That is the ticket subcategories table with all the constraints. So the next thing is I want us to generate scaffold that particular item. So I'll add new, then scaffolded item. Then I'm going to choose MVC controller with views using entity framework core. Then I'll choose my model, which is the ticket subcategories. So this is the ticket subcategory. Then this will be my controller. Then I'll add it. So this will generate our views and all the CRUD operation code that we need to actually create our ticket subcategories. So if you're following this video and you want to claim the source code, you can get the link down below. You can get the source code as we are going to enhance this application. So there we go. Our ticket subcategories has been created and you can see here we have the index and it's giving us all those information. So one thing that I want us to do, you'll be able to see that we have now the ticket subcategories as a folder here. So this is the subfolder. Then under index, we can actually check for, we can actually display the category, the code, the name, created by, created on. We can remove the modified by. Then we can also do away with the modified by because these are nullable. Then created by, we can always provide the full name. Then the next thing is, if we launch our app, I want you to see something. So instead of accessing the subcategories in a different link, we can actually have them within the category. So you can access them within the category. So let's just launch our app so that you're able to see how that works. So let me just relaunch. So for those who are watching this channel, welcome to NetCode, and you can consider subscribing so that you help us reach more people. So as you can see, our app has launched, and here, if we go to ticket categories, we'll see we have the details, edit, and delete. But now we can actually add something here. We can add the subcategories, so you can access them from here. So let's just go back to the ticket categories. So here, actually it doesn't have a data table class. We can always pick it from what we have here. So I'll take this class and have it on our ticket categories here. So I'll just have it here. Then the next thing is I want us to have so I'll add the categories, subcategories. So here I'll just do subcategories, categories. So if we do that, then here we can always take this to index. So then we can specify the controller. So we'll say controller. Then we do that. Then the controller name, we can get the controller name from here. You'll see this is ticket subcategories. So let me just stop the application. Then if I rename this, I can have it here. So if I just update, I'll update that, then you have the ticket subcategories. Then if we go to the index page for these particular subcategories, we can always require to have an ID. So this ID will be the category ID. So here I'll say variable subcategories. Then I'll say here, so here I can have this as a weight. Then you can say include. So here it will include the created category and the subcategory and the modified by. So then here we can now say to list async. So if we do that and we close it, then there's one thing that we need to do. Before we do that, we want to filter only to access all the subcategories for a certain category. So we'll just say x equals to x dot. So we'll pass the category ID. So what we are passing there is the category. So here we can apply the where clause. So here we are going to pass the category ID from these as a parameter. So then on our view, we are going to return the subcategories. So this index will always give us the subcategories for a particular category ID. So if we go back to our ticket categories, so we are going to supply the controller. So the controller that we are provided here is the ticket subcategories, and the ID, which is now our category ID, it will give us the subcategories. Then we have the action, which is index. So the next thing is we need to add the header. So we have the view, edit, and delete. So here we'll be having the subcategory. So if we do that, let's just launch the app and see how this looks like. So that is how we are going to link our category, that is the tickets categories, to the tickets subcategories. So if we launch the app, we should be able to access the subcategories from our categories. So this is how our app looks like. So if we go to tickets categories, we should be able to see these subcategory section. So if we click on subcategories for the hardware, then you can see it is passing a parameter ID. Then we have, this is now the table for our subcategories. So our table looks a bit weird, so we can actually style that. So we can borrow some of the stylings that we had done for the tickets categories. So I'm going to copy some of the details here. Then go back to our ticket subcategories. Then just update from the header, and I'm going to replace it there. So this will be, our title will be ticket subcategories. So that is our title. Then here we will say add new ticket subcategory. Then our data table will have the table head. We have the category, code name, created by and created on. Then for the category, we don't want to display IDs. We cannot always display the name of the category. Then you have the code, the name, the created by, which we have the full name, and the created on, which is the date which this record was created. So our divs needs to be closed. So I'm going down to this particular area. Then I'm going to close the div that we've just added. So I don't know how many are they. So we'll just see. I think there are 3. So then if I format our app, you should be able to see that it aligns, and you'll be able to see these stripes. So this actually guides us to, if you click here, it will take you to the last div that has been closed. So that is okay. So if we do that, so the next thing that I want us to do, we have our add new ticket subcategory action. So we need to go to the create action, and our controller, which is the ticket subcategories controller. I'll go to the create action. You see we have the view data for all the created by, created on, and the modified by. But as communicated earlier on our previous video, we are not going to provide these as options for users to choose, but it will be for the system should automatically give us the user who is logged in and log that particular entry with the person who created it. So I'm going to remove also the bindings for this particular action. Then we'll just remain with the ticket subcategory, and that is it. So also I'm going to do away with this. So I'll do away with that. Then for this particular section, for the create, so I want us to ensure that we are supplying the ticket subcategory ID. So we can do int ID, or we can always have, so this one should be, let's just do that way. Then here, you can always apply the int ID. Then here, we can, so this will be our category ID. So what I want us to do, I want us to take the ticket subcategory view model. That is the model. So I'll just declare it. I'll say ticket subcategory, then say category. Then I can just do here is equals to new. Sorry, I'll just do here equals to new. Then I can close this. So you can always do this, or you can actually remove this that way. So which is a bit easier. Then after I do that, I want to supply this ID to my model. So this model, I want it to have to be returned here within the view. So I can always assign the category ID. So I'll say category ID equals to my ID that I've just applied above. So then this will always have my category ID. So whenever we are creating here, it will always come with this category ID. So the next thing is I want us to now, when we are creating the subcategories, I want us to ensure that we are actually getting the logged in user. So what I want us to do is for the, so I'll declare a variable called user. So I'll say logged in user, logged in. So this will be logged in user, logged in user. Then will be equals to user, which is system.security claims. Then I'll say dot first value. That's okay. So if we have that, then the next thing that we need to do is on our ticket subcategory, we need to assign it to the logged in user. So we need to assign the created by ID property to our logged in user ID. So I'll just do that. So this will give us the user ID. Then we also need to log the time this record was created. So we'll say created on will be equal to the date time, then dot that particular time dot now. Then this will apply to our editing. Every time we edit, so I'll just go same to what we are doing here. So I'll remove all this. Then before modifying our record, we'll also do away with this binding. Then before modifying our record, I'll also add these particular details. So I'll get the person who is logged in, but now we are not modifying the created by. Here we are dealing with the modified by ID and the modified on time. So after that, we can now test this particular section. But before that, I want us to pass, whenever we are creating our record, we should always pass our message. So we'll take the success message from what we had created. But remember also we have our audit trail. So I'm going to copy this, what we had done on our add tickets. Then I'll paste it here. So you can see here, we are logging the audit trail. So this is the create. Then you are getting the IP address for the person who is doing this, the date and time it was done, and the user is logged in. So we can take this particular user and pass it here. Then the module it is affecting is the ticket subcategories. So this is our submodule. Then the affected table, we will always have these as the table. So remember the tables are in plural, so I'll just do ticket subcategories. Then it will save that. Then we now pass the message, success message. So here we'll say ticket subcategory, category details successfully created. Then we redirect to index. So let's just test what we have done. So I'm going to relaunch the app. then try to create a subcategory from what we have done. So then let me just put in a breakpoint at this particular point so that we see how that happens. So I'm launching the app, then we should be able to see. So let me launch. So for those who are watching this video and you haven't subscribed, consider subscribing. Like our video and comment down below in case you need any adjustments or comments for this particular video. So this is our dashboard. So if we go to the ticket categories, then the subcategories, if I click subcategories, it will take me to the ticket subcategories as you see. So if I click add new, we should be able to get the ID. So the ID here is actually 0. So then we are missing our subcategory ID. So what we need to do, let's go back to our ticket subcategories under index. Then here, where is it? Under ticket subcategories, tickets categories, I mean. Then whenever we were passing the index, so here we were passing the index, then ticket subcategories and the ID. So that's cool. So the next thing is under ticket subcategories, index page. Here, I want us to check something. Here we are getting the ticket subcategory as the model. Then we are having all this information. So let's go back to our controller under tickets list. So here, I want us to change this. So this is 0. So let's just change this. So I want us to go back to our index page. Here, let's do something. So I want us to create a view model. So let's just do view model here. So I'm going to create another folder called view models. So we'll just do view models. So I want us to create another view model here that is the folder called view models. Then I want to create a class. Then I'm going to say ticket subcategories view model. So you can do view model, you can just say VM. So you can do VM. So if we do that, then on this class, I want us to have a public int. So we can actually borrow all the properties that are there within our ticket subcategories. So I'm going to borrow all these properties, then I'll have them here. So if I have them here, I can also, so I can import this class under models. So that is okay. Then we can have a list. But before that, I want to introduce you to something called AutoMapper. So before that, I'm going to have here a class. So I'll say public. So this is public list. So I want to have a list of my ticket subcategory. And this one will now give me ticket subcategories. So you can see this is now my ticket subcategories. So that means this VM, I'm going to reuse it within our views. So if you go to our ticket subcategory views under index, I'll replace this instead of IEnumerable, I'll just do helpdesk models. Then I can say so here I'll just use my view models. So I'll just reference this to view models. Then here I'll say ticket VM. So this ticket VM now has can see we'll have an issue here now. So here I'll just do model dot ticket subcategories, which will give me what I need. Then created by and created on, we can always have them as properties within our view model. So go back to the view model, then you can always create that as So we can always borrow. Instead of creating, we can actually inherit from the user activity. So if we inherit that, then it will actually address these issues within this particular area. So let's just see. You can see that is gone. So we now have our ticket subcategories, and this is a list, but we have an issue. So on our index page, we want to return, so here we can actually say int that, then we can do ticket subcategory VM, which is a view model. Then we can say VM. Then this VM, we want to return it. So we will take this, then we can always do here VM the ticket subcategories is equals to that. Then you can always return the view model. Now, what we need to check is every time we pass this model, you can always assign the ID. So I'm going to do here VM.category ID is equals to the ID. So this ID here. So I can always use that ID whenever I want to create the subcategories. So why did I change this? So I want to use this ID whenever I'm creating a subcategory. I should always pass the category ID. So under the subcategories index, I'll come here, then I now have the ASP action create. Then I can always apply a parameter here. I'll just say ASP root. Then I can say ID. Then if I do that, I can then pass from the model. So I'll say at model. I'll just say at model. Sorry, at model. Then dot category ID. So if we check on the controller for the subcategory index, this category ID should always give us a value. So within this index, we will always pass the ASP root ID, subcategory ID, and it will go to this particular action. So if we try now, go to the create action, that is the create here, we should always get this value being given to us, and it should not be 0. That means you can create a subcategory from a category. You need to create the main category, then you create the subcategories. Instead of having them as a drop-down list, you can always do that, or you can always do this approach where you create the categories, then from the categories, you can create the subcategories. So I'll just go to the tickets. Then here, this is the hardware. If I click subcategories, it takes me to this particular area. And it has now filtered to only the subcategories for the hardware. So if I click add new, this ID should always have a value. See, it's now 1. That means that we have the category ID for that particular section. Then I'll also put in a breakpoint here. So if I continue, it should give us the create form. But now for the create form, you can see we have the create ID, code, name, created by, created on, modified. So we don't need all this because this is supplied by the application, and we should not allow users to be providing the person who created or the person who modified. So what we need to do, go to the create eraser page, then let's do away with all those information. This one, sorry, so I'm going to remove them. So I'll just highlight and remove, and also this one. So also our form looks a bit weird, so we can always have these as MD12. Then we can do here, so we can always have these in a row. So I'll just do div class. Then we can have, so we'll say this is, we can have the class here. So we'll say here row. Then I'm going to close this. So if I close, I need to wrap this up in a row. Then I want to have these in 2 columns. So I'll just do that. Then I can say this is MD6. And whenever I have that, then I need to close it here. So if I do that, and I can paste this as well here, and I close it here. So I'll just close it. Sorry, I'll do div. So then I can also have this here and I can close it here. So I want this to be in 2 columns. Then I need to remove this, so we don't need. So the only thing we need here is the category and the name. But there is one thing that we did. So we don't need the categories. So I want to remove this because we are actually supplying the categories. We already know the category ID. So if I format this, I'll have my 2 fields, the code and the name. Then the only thing that I need is so I'll try to borrow the styles. I want to have this in a card. So I'll just borrow this. So I'll borrow it from the tickets that we did. So under the create form, we can now add this. So here I'll say add new ticket subcategory. Then I'll need to close this particular row. Then I'll add 2 of them. So if I format this, then we should be able to see that this is closed and it's closed up to the top. So if we try to update our app now, we should be able to get this particular form. So let's continue. So you can see this is now how it looks. We have the code and the name. So for the start code, assuming we are adding the category for it's hardware, we were doing hardware. So for the hardware, we can say here this is a mouse. So we can say mouse. So we can say mouse. Then we can also have this as the name. So you can say mouse issues. So if you click create, it should give us that particular. So if you go to the subcategory, you should be able to see some values here. We have the code, that is the mouse that we provided. We have the ID of the subcategory that we also provided. And we have, so here the ID is actually giving us so it's taking the wrong thing. So if you see here, the subcategory here should be, you should always have this ID should be the one for subcategory. Then the name, then we'll be able to get the person who is logged in. So why don't we have this? So here, I want you to go to the create action. So here within the form, just to have that particular ID, so I'm going to supply something here. So I'll just say here, I'll do input, then I'll say class, then I'll do hidden. We are not supposed to display that particular ID to the user, but we have a value for it. So that value is equals to the model, then dot category ID. So you remember this category ID, it should always come with that particular value. So if you close it, let's relaunch our app. We should always have this category ID with a value instead of having it as null or something else, because we are creating the subcategories from the categories. So let's launch the app and see. So if I launch the app, go back, so let's try to relaunch. So for those who are watching this video for the first time and you have not subscribed, consider subscribing. And if you need the source code, you can claim the source code on the link below. Then, so we'll go to the tickets categories again. Under the hardware subcategory, click add new. So you can see this is displaying, but we are not supposed to show that. So this one should be hidden. So you can say input value, then we say hidden. So this is not working. We'll say hidden. Then so let's just so instead of having the ID there, we can have so if we go to the controller under the tickets controller, the ticket subcategory controller, so we can always provide this as an ID. Then if we do that, this will give us an ID. Then here we can always say category subcategory dot category ID is equals to, we can say here ID. So if we do that, then we can relaunch the app. So this category ID should always come with the value. So let's just relaunch the app and see. So here, let me just open. So if we go to the categories, subcategories, add new, provide the code. So I'll just say mouse here. Then I'll say this is the mouse issues. So we'll say mouse issues. So if we click create, the ID here should always give us a value. Then subcategories should give us the, you see the subcategory is 0, but the ID is 1. So we should, if the ID is 1, it will actually conflict with some of the records that we have. So what we need to do, come to our subcategory code. Because you are adding, you should always set the ID to 0. So here we should do 0. So I'll just do here 0. Then if we relaunch again, so let's relaunch again. So that will now give us the new subcategory record. So we should now be able to save it and get the success message of our record. So there we go. So if I click tickets categories, subcategories, and add new, I can be able to add the mouse, then provide the mouse description, say this is mouse, sorry. Then if I add, we can get the ID. So then the logged in user, we should get the logged in user ID. You see this is the logged in user ID. Then it will assign the logged in user ID to the created by, and the created on will be assigned the date, that is the current date and time. So if we check on the created category, you'll be able to see now we have the created by assigned a value, created on it has a value, and you also have the ID which is 1, and the name mouse issues, and the code is mouse issues. But now if we proceed, we should now have the final entry here, which is the ID. You see the category ID is 1, which is now for the hardware. The code is mouse, created by, created on, ID, and all these others. So if we proceed, our app should be able to create that particular record, and we should be able to see it on our index. So you can see our categories is not being displayed. So let's just go back here. Subcategories, you see, it is actually displaying. But why was it giving us an empty list? So if you go back to add it, we say let's add another particular issue. If it's hardware, let's say UPS. So let's say UPS. So if you say UPS issues and we click create, you will see it is actually giving us the success message, but it's not displaying the records here until you go back to the tickets categories, then subcategories, then you'll be able to see the list of the tickets. The reason is it's actually a redirect issue. So if you go back to our app under the create action, whenever this has been created successfully, you should actually redirect it to index. So I'm going to remove this. I'll say redirect to index. Then I'll just do here redirect to index, and we should always provide a parameter. So I'll just say new, then I can provide the ID. So I'll just say ID equals to, so I'll always provide the ID of that particular record. So I'll say ID, and the good thing is we have the ID here. So I'll just say ID is equals to ID. So if I do this, we should now be able to, whenever we save this particular record, it should take us to the index, and it should always provide the ID, that is the category ID. So every time we save, we should be able to see the records that we've saved. Let's just launch the app, try to save one subcategory and see if the record will appear instead of giving us an empty data table. So let's just launch the app and see. So for those who are following this series and it's getting interesting, subscribe to our channel, comment down below on what you need to see on this particular application, then we'll be adding for you. So under the tickets, if we go to subcategories and add another subcategory, we say add disk. So you say add disk, so this one is the code. Then you can say maybe the description is add disk issues. So if we add, you see it is now creating the subcategory and it is redirecting us to the list of issues that we've added. So you can also make this a bit better on the UI. So you can borrow some of the styles that we had added for the tickets. So I'm going to borrow the edit buttons. So I'll just copy these three, which are the main areas. So I'll then update this particular section. Then on the headers, I'll have here as a view. Then I can also replicate this to edit. And I think we can have the delete. So if we update this, we should be able to see our application with the new buttons. And we can now, let's just see. So we need to relaunch it. So let's just relaunch it. So we now have the view, edit, and delete. Our buttons are details, edit, and delete. So you should be able to see that. So we've been able to create now the subcategories and the categories. So from the tickets categories, you can have the subcategories and you can see our buttons now, details, edit, and delete. So if we add new, we say another subcategory can be, let's say, shredder. So then if we do this, so we say issues, so if we create it, then we now have our shredder issues here. The same thing if we go to tickets categories, assuming we have a software issue. So if we click on subcategories for software, you see we don't have any subcategories. But if click add, then you can say for software, we can say, let's say antivirus. So if we have the antivirus, you can say antivirus installation. So if we add, then we'll have our first subcategory for software. Then if we add another one, we say here we have an issue with AnyDesk. We say AnyDesk installation. Then so AnyDesk installation, if we create it, then we'll have another subcategory for that particular issue list. So that is one way on how you want that to happen. But assuming you don't want to access these subcategories from the main, that is from the category section, we can also have it within the navigation menu. So how do we do that? So we can go to our subcategory under the tickets subcategories. We can create another razor component. So this razor component, we can call it all subcategories. So let's just call it all subcategories. So we can say, or we can just call it subcategories. So this one will be our razor page. So this is subcategories. Then add it. Then we can duplicate what we have under index. So under subcategories, we can always paste this. Then we'll be having now so maybe then we disable the creation of the subcategory from this part. Then we'll say ticket subcategories. Then we have all these other details. So whenever we have this razor page, we need to have the action to it. So we will go to subcategories. We can always duplicate what we have under index. So I'll paste this here. So I'll just copy this under index, paste it here. Then I'll have this as the name of this action. So I don't need the ID. So then I'll just remove the where. So this one will give me all the list of the subcategories, irrespective of the main category. So that then I can now have my subcategories, but to have it on the navigation menu, I'll go to shared folder and a layout. Then within the subcategory, that is the tickets categories, I can duplicate this and I can paste it here. Then I'll say ticket subcategories. Then I'll always change the controller name. So we're now dealing with subcategories. I'll paste it there and then remove the word controller. So then I'll be having now my subcategories. But there's one thing that you need to be aware of. You see, this is SP action index, then controller name is ticket subcategories. But our action, that is our razor view, is actually subcategories. So you need to copy this and replace this with index. So if we go back to our application, if you launch that, you should now be able to see all the subcategories within a single view instead of having them within a sub, that is within the main categories. So let's just launch and see. So you should be able to see now the layout. You can see here we have now the ticket subcategories. And if I click on it, I'll be able to see all the subcategories for hardware and even for the software. But when we are within the tickets categories, you can always see for the specific category that you are in. So we are going to enhance this application and add more features. And one thing that you need to remember is on our tickets section, when we were adding tickets, we didn't know how to tie the ticket to the category and subcategory, which will be a drop-down list, and you need to create whenever you are selecting the category and the subcategory. Then you'll also change the statuses and the priority to ensure it is a drop-down so that we don't have users giving us various statuses and even priority status. So that is it for today. On our next video, stay in touch. We'll be enhancing this application. That is it for today, and see you in our next video. Bye.